The strong commitment to accuracy extended to the brilliant suit and capsule replicas built for the filming. The Apollo spacesuit was the most complex garment of its time. It protected the astronauts from temperatures on the moon ranging from 243 degrees below zero to 225 degrees. It weighed about 180 pounds. The suit replicas had over 180 individually made pieces, including 24-karat gold-coated helmet visors, just like the ones that protected the Apollo astronauts from the rays of the sun.
First day I was in the suits was the astronaut walk, which was a physically exhausting day. I mean, the suits weigh 60 pounds, so I lost 9 pounds first day.
These aren't real spacesuits, but they're kind of brilliant mock-ups. And we're very lucky we have coolant suits underneath, vests underneath here that we strap on that has cold water running through it, and they can control the temperature.
There it is. It's going around my chest right now. It just went down my spine. It's kind of nice. It's saving my life.
We also have an airflow system that they hook up a hose here and pump air. So when we have our helmets on, there's oxygen flowing.
We had a couple of times we were working very late at night, and the AD would call RAP, and the electricians would just turn off the power, forgetting that it's like, excuse me, I know we're like spoiled babies, but could you just take us out of here before we die? I wanted to have one of those little hammers, you know, in case of emergency break glass.
The Apollo command module was less than 13 feet in diameter and contained over 30 miles of wiring.
It's as though somebody designed a machine to go to the moon and then later on realized they were going to put a human in it. You know, if they had any smaller, Billy Barty would have been the first man on the moon.
Okay, my feet are wedged.
On re-entry, the capsule traveled 25,000 miles per hour, while the heat shield withstood 5,000 degrees.
You look at this and it's really kind of like a glorified soup can, and you're like, my goodness, you know, we worry if there's like turbulence on a 747.
Capsule replicas built for the miniseries were duplicated from NASA diagrams. All the switches and gauges operate by remote control.
There's controls behind your head, and there's a little mirror there which rotates all around, and behind, the controls behind his head are all written in backwards, so you can look in the mirror and read the controls behind and push buttons back here too.
The replicas that were used on this film were every bit as good as any mock-up we ever had, which made my job much easier because I could go to a checklist for an actor in a scene, and the checklist would say switch A, B, or C, and I could go into the replica and it was there in exactly the right place.
You spend 3 or 4 days on your back and they're looking at these same switches, and you start saying, hey, that's the right switch I'm hitting, that's pretty cool. And you get into it. I mean, many times during this project I have sat there and just, you know, looked at the astronaut stuff and say, this is so very cool. You know, it is just plain cool.
Perhaps the most ambitious and most difficult mission recreated was the tragedy of the Apollo 1 fire.
I mean, it was almost an unearthly kind of a fire. It only took 20 seconds for the fire to start, sweep through the spacecraft, and then burn itself out. The pressure inside the spacecraft had gotten to be so high, something like 2,500 pounds per square inch, that it ruptured the hull of the spacecraft. The astronauts never had a hope of escaping because it was a hatch that opened inward into the cabin. And once the fire started and the pressure built up, there was no way to open that hatch.
All three of those guys, apparently the last things they were doing was their job. One guy's saying, we're on fire, you know, we've got a fire in here. He's broadcasting even when the flames are right on him. The other guy is hitting a purge valve, or, you know, trying to contain this fire. And Ed White, my character, the last thing he was doing was reaching up and trying to get this hatch loose.
They operated as heroes, and that's what we, I think, intend really to show, is that these men were in fact heroes.
Through meticulous examination of NASA footage, photos, and mission transcripts, the time of Apollo came to life during filming.
The sets are extraordinarily detailed. Our mission control is a recreation down to the square inch, and probably down to every cigarette butt is in the right place and every coffee stain.
There was a number of binders as set dressing, and I picked up a binder, and it was an original checkoff list for the Saturn V rocket and its launch, step by step, and it was like 150 pages of it. You never see that on a set.
30-year-old Apollo artifacts long forgotten by NASA were recovered and restored for the filming, including the White Room, through which the Apollo 11 through 17 crews boarded their spacecrafts, the Apollo 11 astronaut van, and the Apollo Command Module and Lunar Module simulators.
Well, these simulators are the actual ones that the Apollo crews used. This one here is for rendezvous, docking in space, which was real important for actually being able to bring a guy back from the moon. This one right here was the lunar landing simulator. And it's kind of neat. It's connected to this mounted camera here, which responds directly to the commands that you give it inside the lunar module. And there's like a 10-foot diameter lunar surface made out of plaster of Paris. And the camera will come closer and closer as you steer it closer and closer.
The lunar module from the canceled Apollo 18 mission was also refurbished for the miniseries.
As a matter of fact, they still got my torque wrench for closing the hatch here.